it's really important sometimes to lose something to start to be aware of how much it means to you and its significance. And that's happened. We've lost a lot of things. You're now listening to the Let's Talk About Life podcast, brought to you by Don't Settle, with your host, Harrison King. What's up, everybody? My name is Harrison King, and we're back for another episode of the Let's Talk About Life podcast. If you're new here, which you might be, and if you are, welcome. We are having conversations on here that are a little more than the average discussion, the average chat. That's the whole point about this. It's talking about things and diving a little deeper into the stuff that's the bigger things in life, right? And that's the point, and that's what we're doing today. And before we start, I just want to quickly have a little disclaimer and say that we're talking about something. I'm going to share some information that might be a little controversial to some people, maybe, or you think that I'm, trying to tell you what to do. That's not the point, because I think it's actually important to talk about things that are controversial, because it means that, people have different opinions on things, and the point of this podcast is to try to broaden your perspective, to think about things, maybe, shed some light on the other side of a situation that you maybe haven't thought about. And that's what we're going to try to do today. So I want you to be open-minded. I'm not trying to say what's right, what's wrong, just relaying some facts. So on that note, we're going to talk about Covid-19, the coronavirus, right? It's really one of the only things we talk about nowadays. At least that's what I found. I was just out at an appointment earlier today, and the person was talking with the receptionist about what? About what? The coronavirus. That's right. And it's just, that's all we talk about. That's the big thing that's happening in our life right now. And that's, funny enough, what we're going to talk about today. But not what, like I said, not what we normally would talk about. Lots of the time, there's a lot of complaining and kind of negativity about this because it's a bad thing, right? Well, first of all, we know why we're doing that because of the last episode, right? We talked about complaining. But why are we focusing on the negatives of this? Because it's not a great thing, right? People are dying. People are losing their jobs. Businesses, big companies are going bankrupt. They're out of money. It's a crazy time. 2020 has really been quite the roller coaster, as we all know. So yeah, it makes sense that we're trying to, not talk about what's positive about this, right? What's positive about COVID-19? Well, I think, and I've chatted with a lot of other people, that, it actually can be seen as a good thing. Now, I'm not talking about the virus itself. The virus itself is horrible. We don't want that. That's horrible. It's the things it's causing for people. I'm not at all trying to undermine what's happening in our world and with people in different situations. But what I want to talk about is maybe how you can take something that seems bad or that is bad and see it as an opportunity. And again, not trying to diminish what's happening, but trying to give you a little bit of a different perspective. Go, maybe this is a good thing to just kind of change things up. Things have been, very much the same in our society for a long time, for quite a while, I guess, and maybe in your life. And this could be a chance to kind of change it up. And it definitely has changed up our lives, right? But it's creating a new normal. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. So just to start off, what is the biggest kind of impact that this has had on people's lives? Well, we're working from home. People are working from home. And yeah, there were people that worked from home before, but most people are, well, basically everybody is right now, unless, they're starting to open things up and you're getting back to work. But even then, a lot of companies are keeping people at home. And the interesting thing here is that according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, this was pre-corona, right? This statistic, but 24% of people were doing their work from home. That's not very many. That's like less than a third of people were working at home, and 82% were doing their work at the workplace. Yes, that doesn't add up to 100. I'm not the statistics guy. I'm just telling you what the U.S. Bureau's telling me, right? Anyway, most people are working at a workplace. Well, because of that, you're not at home very often, and you're missing out on other things that you could be doing at home. So interesting thing here, the Huffington Post posted a thing a while ago, and this is really interesting. So I want to share this with you. So the average person, they say, spends just under 80 years on this planet. We're going to go with that for this, right? So just under 80 years. 26 years of that over your lifetime, 26 years of that will be spent sleeping. That's crazy, but it makes sense because, we spend how many hours of our day, 6 to 8 hours of our day in bed trying to sleep or sleeping. So 26 years of that. 7 years trying to fall asleep, which is quite funny. So we're looking at 33, right? And on top of that, 4 years and 6 months of your life you're eating. But these things are important. We need to eat, we need to sleep, right? So you can't really get rid of that. So we're looking at, 37, almost 40 years, almost half our lives are eating and sleeping, but we need that to survive. So we can't really complain about that, right? And then just another interesting fact about 1 year, 4 months exercising. But here's the thing, here's the kicker, right? This is what I was trying to get to. About 13 years of your life, if you're living to, saying being about 80, well, even if you're not, but 13 years of your life for the average person is spent at work. 13 years of your life is spent at work. That's pretty substantial thing. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying. But that's a lot of time. 13 years of your life spent at work. And I'm just trying to put this into perspective to kind of see, how much time does, the average person spend away from home and their family at work? 13 years of your life you spend. And the thing about that is 27% of your remaining life. So we're talking about earlier here, you're spending time sleeping and eating, obviously all those things that are a necessity. So if you take that out of the picture, because, you can't, you're sleeping, you're unconscious, you can't really do anything. So we'll say with the years left, you spend 27% of your remaining years left at work. That's like a third of your life, like that you're actually living. A third of your life you're at work. The average person, again. Well, while we're on this topic, another interesting fact, this is not really relevant, but around 11 years you spend on a screen time, 11 years. Ridiculous. It's crazy. We love our phones, right? That'll be another episode at some point. We're going to talk about that. But anyway, 13 years. That's what we're coming back to. 13 years of your life. I can't get over that. That's crazy. Well, here's the thing. So now you spend 13 years of your life. Well, that's going to be different now because people are working from home. And why, you're saying, why, Harrison, why is Corona a good thing, right? Well, you spend all this time at work. Maybe you'd rather be at home. Well, here's some interesting facts about working at home, right? So according to the Global Workplace Analytics, 2/3 of people, this is again pre-corona, 2/3 of people want to work from home, right? A lot of people want to be working at home. And the thing about it is that 95% of employers say that telework, like working at home, has a high impact on employee retention. So people are staying actually focused more and doing more things, and they're being more productive when they're at home, right? I know, there's more. Just wait. Here's something that is really interesting. 78% of employees who call in sick really aren't. That's right. Most people that are saying they're sick, they're not sick. They're at the golf course. But you know what? They do so because of, family issues, personal needs, stress. Maybe you're going golfing, who knows? But 78% of employees who call in sick aren't. And the thing about that is those are, unscheduled absences. But those unscheduled absences cost employers a total of $300 billion a year. That's for U.S. companies. They're losing $300 billion. They're after just from people calling in sick, but they're not actually sick. And here's the thing, right? How do you reduce that? People calling in sick for no reason. Well, the American Management Association found that organizations that implemented a telework program working at home realized a 63% reduction in unscheduled absences. So people working at home aren't calling in sick as much because, they don't need to be, they're trying to get off work so they can be at home doing things or whatever. They can do that while they're at home. So far, I'm hearing a couple benefits of being at home. We're talking about employee retention going up, unscheduled absences going down, which is, better for everybody. Companies are saving money, $300 billion it costs them a year in that. So if you have people working at home, those numbers are going down. And here's the big thing. We talk about employee retention, but teleworkers are 35 to 40% more productive than their counterparts at the workplace. So people working remotely from home are significantly more productive. And here's the interesting thing. Again, we're talking about money, right? For the businesses. Well, businesses lose $600 billion a year. We're talking again in the U.S. in workplace distractions. $600 billion a year they're losing. So they're using that from distractions. $600 billion. They're using $300 billion they're losing from people calling in sick, but they're at the golf course. So that's a lot of money. We're talking at that's $900 billion. We're talking in the U.S. companies a year they're losing, and they can start to lower those numbers by sending people home, saying, work from your bedroom. I don't know, but it's going to save them money. And the other thing is people are happier when they're working at home. It says people are significantly happier. And people are being more productive. They're saving their company's money. It's just a really interesting thing. So working at home, you might be, feeling like it's a bad thing, but it can be seen as a good thing overall, I think. You can definitely try to take that route. Really interesting. And another important thing, it reduces energy consumption because office equipment energy consumption is about twice that. It requires like 2 times more energy to send people to a big office building than people trying to operate stuff in their own home. So we're saving the planet, we're saving the company's money, people are happier, they got more free time. Oh my gosh, this is what I'm saying. It's just interesting. Now, obviously there's other factors, right? But the thing is that it's something to think about. And I have heard, a couple of friends and family and their companies have said, we might be actually not going back to work. I work in a big corporate, building, and I might be working from home for a long time because companies have realized that people are being more productive. We're saving money. This is a good thing. So that's something that could come out of this, whole situation. And here is something interesting. So this is when people are back at work. Everything was quote unquote normal. The New York Post said that American families get just under 37 minutes of quality family time together per day. That's a little sad. Under 37 minutes of quality family time together per day. And I mean, the thing is, on weekends when people aren't at work and they're not doing other things, that quality time jumps up to 2 hours and 40 minutes. Because you're, awake from work and your distractions or whatever you're doing during the week. So why is this important? Well, being at home increases your family time, right? Because, 2 things. You're not doing potentially as much work because you're being more productive at home. So you have a little more free time, potentially, depends on what's happening. But also you're just, you're at home and you're gonna have more family time because people are around. You're being more productive, and you're technically less distracted, as they said. But somebody's coming in, they're giving you a sandwich or whatever. You're having a chat with a family member, whatever. You're spending time still with your family, and it's more than when you're just away at work. And why is this important? Well, social support provides a resource for coping that dulls the detrimental impact of stressors in your life. On your well-being. So basically, just it's a social support is a resource for just coping with the bad impact that stress has on our lives. And so that obviously we want to deal with stress and we want to feel better. And a way to do that is just having social support, which is quality, can be quality family time. And this doesn't just have to be family, but that's what we're talking about right now. And, there's actually a lot of health benefits of spending quality time. We're talking healthy relationships with family. So we're going to base it off that right now. And you can see that, I know that there's a lot of different situations out there and people might not have those healthy relationships and they might be not in that situation. But this could also, again, be an opportunity to try to better those relationships, strengthen them, and make them healthier. Right? And then you're starting to get closer to this. But health benefits of spending quality time in healthy relationships with family, it improves your mental health. It boosts your self-confidence. It teaches effective conflict resolution, right? You got to figure things out. I want to paint the wall white, and the other person wants to paint it red. Well, you got to figure that out. So it teaches effective conflict resolution. It reduces stress. It enhances your physical health. And here's the big one. It lengthens your life expectancy, right? Health benefits of spending quality time with family, healthy family relationships, right? It can lengthen your life expectancy. How crazy is that? Healthy relationships can potentially, now this is not, again, all the time, lots of this stuff, but it can increase your lifespan up to 50%. You're living so much longer having those healthy relationships. So here's the thing, right? If you're staying home from work, you're working from home, you're spending more time with your family, most likely. And if you're trying to cultivate healthy relationships in your family or the people around you, you're actually increasing your health and potentially your life expectancy. Just ridiculous stuff, crazy things that I never thought were possible. So make sure that you're making that a priority in your life because it's important. It makes you feel better, like you said, and it's also gonna maybe make you live longer. And I think that's something we all want. So, and here's something else, right? So, society, as we know, is very distracted, and you might not think about it, but with our screens and everything that's going on, there's advertising all over, and I mean, you go on, say you're even on Facebook or Instagram, right? There's an ad every how many 3 or 4 things that you're scrolling through, and we are so distracted. And I'm not blaming anybody. This is just how our society has come to be, and there's no ignoring that. Whether maybe you think that we're not, but we are. We're distracted, and the other thing is we're overstimulated. There's so much going on, and that's why we are distracted, right? And if you're wondering what that is, overstimulation is a physiological and psychological overload, right? It's just too much for the senses. It's an act of overburdening of the senses, and it affects both physical and the mental bodies in tandem. So your mind, your actual physical body, it affects those things being overstimulated by whatever senses. And so it can be, purely sensory. So, I mean, I guess you can be overstimulated by like touching something that's uncomfortable or whatever, but it also has a psychological component, right? So when you're overburdened with work or you've spent too many hours in front of a screen, that kind of thing. And overstimulation isn't just a problem in our modern day society. It's actually more than that. It's a disease, which sounds harsh to say, but it is, because the constant overburdening of the senses like this, it isn't healthy for us. And unfortunately, it's not something we can fully, avoid all the time because we're in this society. It's what we're doing. It's around us. And here's kind of how it works. So overstimulation creates excess dopamine in the brain. We've talked about it before. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter tied to the reward and pleasure centers of the brain. So when we've got excess dopamine in our circuitry, we feel good, right? When you got a lot of dopamine. So when you're overstimulated, you got a lot of dopamine, you're feeling good. But the problem with this is that if you have so much, excess dopamine, as time goes on, our dopamine receptors become less responsive to the natural kind of ebb and flow of our hormones. So what that means is that we basically require more powerful stimuli to release the dopamine we've come to crave. So it creates this bad cycle of, well, you're getting this dopamine, but the more you have of it, the less sensitive you are to, whatever. Going through Instagram, let's say you're getting a like, you get a like, that creates that dopamine in your brain. But the more that happens, then you need more, to get that same feeling, you're going to need more, which obviously is a problem. So here's something that's kind of, come out of it. ADHD is on the rise, if you didn't know already. And if you don't know what ADHD is, it stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It is a medical condition, and basically a person with ADHD has differences in brain development and brain activity that affect attention, ability to sit still, and self-control, right? So this is a medical condition, but here's the interesting thing. In the 1980s, 1 in 20 children were diagnosed with ADHD, and today that number has risen to 1 in 9, right? That's almost double. And there is a thing here, of course, that there's a decreased taboo kind of surrounding, behavioral disorders and mental health and stuff like that. So, they're diagnosing it more because they're aware of it. But we also have this sensory overload, and there's all these things happening around us that, it's saying, attention deficit hyperactivity. That's what's going on around us. Just everything is just overstimulated, hyperactive. It's phenomenal what's going on around us, and it's causing these problems that we can't even feel good from those dopamine hits that are happening in our brain. Like I said, we need more, and it's creating this constant kind of it's just feeding into the cycle, and it's not a great thing. So how does this all relate to the topic of the day? Well, we know these things and what's going on in society, and like I said, they were overstimulated, but I think, and a lot of other people found, that a forced isolation, kind of like we've been put into, it's necessary to allow people to kind of slow down. First of all, separate yourselves from the busy world that we live in and all the things you're doing, and allow people to sit with their thoughts, because that's not as common as maybe think it is, or as it should be. So here's something that is really interesting. We are, as humans, and I guess just kind of in society, but as humans, scared of being alone. And there is kind of proof to that, because here it is. So there's actually this fear of this thing called the anechoic chamber. It's at this one's at Orfield Labs. There's a couple of them, but basically what an anechoic chamber is, and that's like an echo, right? Like, so no echo. That's what they're trying to say. It's designed to be completely silent. So silent, in fact, that the background noise measured in the room is actually negative. So the background noise is actually less than 0. It's negative 9.4 decibels. So here's the thing. When it's that quiet, if you're in there, right, your ears will adapt, because that's what happens. And you'll actually start to hear your heart beating and the blood flowing through your body. Sometimes you can actually hear your lungs. And basically, in this chamber, you become the sound, because there's nothing else in there. So you're forced to listen to yourself and, of course, your thoughts. But physically, you're hearing, your body and how it works. And the longest anyone has ever stayed in there is about, it was 45 minutes, and some places, because there's different, this specific one was 45 minutes, but it's about 45 to 60 minutes is all that somebody can stay in there for, if you're really pushing yourself. Most people, it's actually torturous. It's not meant to be used for that, but it's so uncomfortable for the average person, because it's so silent, and we're not in that environment ever, because we're in this overstimulated, environment all the time. So something that is interesting to think about is that we live in this world, and I'm talking kind of, Canada, US. I guess these are more first world kind of based things, but we currently live, in this society specifically. We live in a place where individual freedom is more accessible than ever. Right, we continue to fight for freedom of things, and so people can do and say and be free with doing whatever they want. But as a result of this, which I've never thought of before, existential crisis, it's at an all-time high. Right, young people are getting them earlier. Old people are getting them more often, and when we're alone, there's always some sort of anxiety, just a little bit, because all you're left with are your thoughts, and basically these daunting existential questions, because these questions are posed from the freedom that we've worked so hard to get, and that we're surrounded by now. We can do whatever we want. We can be whatever we want. We can think whatever we want. But now there's nobody telling you anything, so you have to decide. You have to think, and you have these existential questions. So when you're alone, there's that anxiety of thinking what do I do, right? And the thing is, the easiest way to deal with that is just to not sit alone with those questions or those thoughts or whatever's in our mind, and it's easy to avoid them. So you're even if you're just on the subway or whatever, you're going home, and you sit down and there's nobody in the car, and you're just sitting there by yourself. Most likely you're going to pull out some earbuds or something and listen to music, because on average, people, we don't know how to just sit alone with our thoughts because there's so many unanswered questions that we are not willing to try to think about. So we basically choose overstimulation because we don't want to deal with what is on the other side of kind of silence and being alone. And when we choose that, a burnout becomes inevitable, right? Because any moving object, no matter how fast it goes, eventually comes to rest. We know that from physics, assuming, there's friction and whatever, but that's what's happening in our lives. And eventually you can't avoid it at some point, which is that existential crisis. At some point it's going to come and you're going to have to deal with it. And this is kind of a little bit of a depressing fact, but it's really good to think about. Whether you like it or not, we are alone. Each individually, we are alone. We're born alone. We die alone. All of your life's most important events you experience alone. And now you're going, well, no, I'm with people, like, for example, they're saying, maybe first goal you're scoring, playing hockey, first kiss, all those kinds of things. Even those things that you're experiencing in the presence of another person, they're causing that experience to happen. You ultimately live through that inside your head alone. Like, you're the one experiencing that situation. We're alone, and that me saying that probably maybe makes you uncomfortable or feels like, whoa, that's kind of harsh, but it's true, and that's not a bad thing. That's what I'm trying to get to here. That's not a bad thing. And I mean, here's just another fact, right? We were talking about working from home. Well, one of the downsides is that oftentimes people working from home want to go back to working at the office because they're feeling lonely. And there could be other reasons, yes, but they're feeling lonely. And what does that come from? Well, we don't, as a society, know how to be alone because and it's nobody's fault, but we're in this overstimulated, kind of sensory overload type of environment all the time. And here's some interesting things. So those are, we're talking about people, most people, and you might agree, reflecting on yourself, that you're scared of being alone, right? But according to Psychology Today, people who do like spending time alone and people who are unafraid of being single and they're fine not being in a relationship, right? They're being alone or single. They're more likely than others to be open-minded, which is interesting. Because they're spending that time alone. People who are unafraid of being single are more agreeable than people who are afraid of being single. And people who are unafraid of being alone, they're not overly sensitive to rejection, and they don't get their feelings hurt too easily because I would say they're learning to deal with that, and getting to know themselves better and think about things. And when those people are in romantic relationships, their own self-esteem does not depend on how the relationships are going. If you're having a bad relationship, it's not actually affecting you because you've taken the time to kind of deal with those things being alone, and you don't depend on other people for your happiness or how you're feeling. And here's a big one that I thought was pretty crazy. Those kind of people that like being alone and are fine with being alone also, right? We're saying they're less likely to be lonely or to be depressed. People that seek out time to be alone, they're not lonely. They are alone, right? Just them, but they don't feel lonely, and they're less likely to be depressed. Right? Again, none of this is like a call out to anybody. I'm just stating some facts that are really quite interesting to ponder. And this is all it's not very common in our society, of taking time to be alone like that, because I said that's just how it's been built. So how do we practice being alone and avoid this overstimulation? Well, you may have guessed, the answer is meditation. And this is a practice that's been around for hundreds of thousands of years. Right? It's the answer to a lot of things. And again, I quickly want to just touch on how this all relates to our topic here. I think this coronavirus and pandemic situation, although the effects of it are bad. It's really forced us to be alone, and it's come in and been like, you know what? I'm sorry, you can't go back to everyday life, and you gotta take some time and figure out how to be self-sufficient, right? And that originally was very scary for a lot of people, and even me too. I was uncomfortable, and it was challenging to be away from people, and you weren't allowed to see people. But it can be seen as a good thing because we're starting to figure out how to be alone, and that's something that our society really needs, I think. And that's why this is a good thing. So we've, been forced into kind of isolation. You have to quarantine, all those things where you're by yourself. How can you actually practice being alone and avoiding this overstimulation that I'm talking about? Well, like I said, it's meditation. In psychology, meditation is defined as, here it is, a family of mental training practices that are designed to familiarize the practitioner with specific types of mental processes. So you're trying to be aware of where things are working in your mind. Now that's the psychological standpoint. It's also a spiritual thing, but I'm not gonna specifically touch on that today. I will discuss meditation another day, but we're talking psychologically. What is it? So it can be practiced. Meditation can be practiced in one of three ways, different kind of modes, right? So there's concentration. So you're focusing on like a single object. It could be internal or external. So they call it like focused attention meditation. So maybe it's just your breath. You're just focusing on your breath. That's, concentrating on one thing. The second mode is observation. Paying attention to kind of whatever is predominant in your experience in the present moment without allowing the attention to get stuck on any particular thing. So you're just kind of there. You're, got an itch or something. You're not trying to change it. You're not focusing on it. You're just kind of going, all right. You're observing the situation and what's going on. Maybe the thoughts in your brain, you're just observing, right? And then the last one is awareness. So allowing awareness to remain present, undistracted, and not engage with either focusing or observing. You're not observing things as though you're just seeing what's happening. You're just aware of what's going on. Those are the three things, the three kind of practices, right? That you can, different types, I guess, of meditation. It's something I strongly suggest that you dive deeper into, but here's how it works. Repeated meditation produces the neurotransmitter serotonin. We're always talking about these hormones. Hey, it's crazy. The things happen in our brain. So meditation is producing serotonin. And what is serotonin? Well, it regulates our mood, and here we go. It alleviates anxiety and battles depression. Well, those are things that are caused from all this overstimulation, right? Well, meditation is going to put out this neurotransmitter serotonin, and it's going to help us to relieve that anxiety. And what's the best part about increased levels of serotonin? Well, the mood boosting chemical actually repairs and resets the dopamine receptors, those sites in the brain. So it's basically like a reset button for your overworked senses. So what we talked about earlier, if you don't remember, that when dopamine there's too much of it, right? It kind of damages those receptors. So we have to, if we're on Instagram or whatever, we're talking about social media, you need more of it to get the same response. So, serotonin, which is released through meditation, can start to repair those receptors in your brain. So basically, all of these negative impacts that the overstimulation has on our actually on our brain can start to be fixed by meditating, right? Crazy. And here's something. Solitude is not a state to be feared, but it's one to enter prepared and to practice. Don't be scared of it. Try to work on it. Try to practice it. Engaging with discomfort, because if you are scared of it, right, it's uncomfortable, but engaging with that discomfort allows us to focus our attention and accept what we can't change and address what's important. So meditation is really important, especially, at all times, but right now we are being given a chance through this whole corona situation to take a step back. Life's kind of slowed down a little bit, and things have been removed from our lives, and we can go take a breath and go, you know what? And maybe if you're listening to this, think about it. Maybe you are worried about being alone and you actually find it challenging. Maybe make that a focus in your life to try to improve and work on. And the way you can do that is through meditation, which we will dive into more another day. But feel free to check out, you can check out the website. There are some guided meditation things. I suggest Headspace is a great starter for anybody that hasn't started up. It's an app. But meditation, really important. So go check that out and give it a try. If you are meditating, make sure it is an important part of your life. And here is the last thing that I've kind of come to, that it's really important sometimes to lose something to start to be aware of how much it means to you and its significance. And that's happened. We've lost a lot of things. A lot of, personal things, right? Like we've lost, maybe it's seeing your family, like extended family more, or friends or whatever, and you're not able to socialize, but we've lost that. And things are, starting to go back up, but, and we're able to do that again, but you start to realize what's significant in your life, because if you have something taken away, it'll be shocking, but it'll actually kind of be a blessing in disguise, because when we lose something, we have to adapt and change how we do things. And this has created, in this situation, a lot of innovation, right? And creation. Doing all these meetings from home. Artists are figuring out how to collaborate from afar. It's created a whole new, here's the problem, we got to try to overcome it and keep doing kind of what we normally do, but let's do it differently, and we got to be innovative. And that is a great thing that's come out of all this, because there is always technological innovation and stuff, but as a culture, as a society, we've been a little bit stagnant for a while. Things are just how they are. It's not like, we went through the Renaissance or whatever. But maybe this is it. Maybe this is our modern day Renaissance. We're starting to having to adapt to, this is how life is. Let's innovate and figure out how to deal with it, how to adapt to what we've lost, and figure out a way to overcome this, right? And of course, as I said before, we realize the importance of things in our lives. So, not working from home, it might be able to make you happier. You've realized, I really don't. I've lost kind of working at the office, but I realized, I actually gained something from this. You maybe haven't been able to see your friends, like I said, and you really miss them. And you realize, you know what? I need to spend more time. I need to make that a priority in my life. It could be anything, right? But that's definitely an important thing, I think, that's come out of this. And you got to start to look at it as though we've lost things, but take this time to reevaluate. What's important in your life? What do you need to focus on more? What have you been avoiding, maybe, in our busy lives that we've been, going? This has been a forced kind of shutdown of normal life. And I really hope, personally, that we don't go back to what we call normal life, because I hope our normal life is different moving past this, because society, we always need to change. Change is important to grow. And I think if you start to look at it like that, this can be seen as a growing opportunity for all kinds of things. Like we said, so the benefits of this virus, and not, I guess it's not the virus itself, the benefits of being stuck and the way being stuck at home and the way it's affected our lives. We're working from home, and like I said, that can be actually a good thing for businesses, money-wise, and it makes people happier overall, and people are working more efficiently. Then they got more time with their family, and you can build. The second thing is you can build those healthy relationships with your family. If you don't already have them, you can start to build them. You can continue to strengthen them, and that has, like we said, positive impacts on your health, how you feel, but also like your physical health, your mental health, and also your life expectancy, right? And of course, this is a break from that overstimulated society that we've been around for a long time. And it's given us a chance to maybe be alone, and we got to try to face our thoughts a little bit. And obviously, we can turn to Netflix and stuff when we're at home, but at some point you're going to have to, kind of turn within, and that's important. And that can be seen as a good thing, because we need that, right? And we need to get rid of that kind of fear that we have of being alone, and maybe realize as a society it's important to not be doing something all the time, and that we need to have that time alone. And lastly, realizing, like I said, what's important in our lives. What do we miss? What do we really miss from this? Oh, I don't care about, my commute to work maybe, but I really miss being able to go across the street and play with my neighbor's dog. I don't know what it is, but which you could probably do now, I guess, if that was the situation. But I don't really miss this part of my life how it was before, but I really miss my weekly get-togethers with my friends and getting together with people. So just take some time and think about these things, and maybe start to see this not as a bad thing, but as a way to grow. And as you know, we're all about growing around here. That's what this is all about. And that's why I'm providing you with some of this information and talking about it, because it's really important to try to see this as an opportunity, and not diminish what's actually happening and the bad things of it, but see it as an opportunity to try to grow and get better, and maybe readjust your life and make your life the best it can be so you can live it to the fullest. And of course, that brings me to Don't Settle, which is our platform and community that's dedicated to personal growth and helping you to live life to the fullest. That's the whole point. And if you haven't checked out the website, go do that. It's don'tsettleofficial.ca, and you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram and all those things. And just provide you with things like this, help you to learn and grow, get better physically, mentally, spiritually, stay motivated, all that kind of stuff. Really important. If you haven't signed up for the community on the email community, go ahead and do that. It'll be on the website under community. And that's an important thing, because it's important, like I said, to be around people, even though we might not be able to physically be around people, to have that support and build those healthy relationships. And that's what Don't Settle is all about. So, please go check that out if you haven't already. And I really appreciate you listening today and tuning in. If you're watching, thank you. Just some things to think about the coronavirus, right? And again, because of all this, I hope everybody's staying healthy and doing well, and getting in and out of the grocery store safely. But yeah, I just thank you so much for listening today, and we'll be back soon next week with another episode. And until then, just remember to keep loving life, and we'll chat with you soon. If you're interested in more content like this, go check out our website at don'tsettleofficial.ca. We're dedicated to providing resources, information, and content designed to assist you on your journey of personal growth, and most of all, to help you live life to the fullest. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll chat with you next time.